Good evening, everybody. What a thrill to be up here sharing the stories that we're hearing today and what we've been experiencing over the last 2 days. And these are all what Diana calls aha moments. And that's, that moment, that spark, that instant where you think to yourself, you know what? I'm going to go that way. And you do. At least that's my aha moment story, and I want to share it with you today. Now bear with me because it starts in 1989 in Northeast China, where I was watching my young students, freshmen and sophomores, at a China Teachers College in Changchun go from being complete innocents to informed, motivated democracy activists. We know it ended badly for the democracy activists. And for my part, I was halfway through my master's program where I thought I was going to be an architect of US-China bilateral relations when I realized I suddenly did not have the objectivity that that kind of a role required. So I pivoted. And I started looking at how political economies and citizen action could stay the violent hand of an authoritarian regime. Sounds kind of current, doesn't it? But actually, that's not really the story I want to talk to you about today because that doesn't really quite get us to that aha moment I want to share. I worked my way around the world designing and delivering democracy and governance programming, from Asia to the Balkans to Eastern Europe, into Africa, and through Latin America. Conversations around governance evolved into conversations about resources, and resources evolved into conversations about environmental issues, and from environmental issues to climate change policy and climate action. After several decades, I found myself living and working in Korea with an organization called the Global Green Growth Institute, which was looking at climate policy at a very macro level. That was really interesting, but after a time, I decided that I really needed to stop because I just didn't like working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's kind of normal, right? So I thought, okay, I'm just going to go home, which by then was in Mexico, and I'm going to start a part-time consulting business. And I'm going to keep working with civil society and with activists and academics and thought leaders, but still in that climate space. And so that's what I did. Things were ticking along pretty nicely. And I was really enjoying the camaraderie, the vision, and the action that I was contributing to and I felt like I was part of. And then it was 2021, and I was watching the Glasgow Conference of Parties. You know that Conference of Parties is the annual gathering in December, which brings together interest groups, academics, policymakers, and activists around climate change and climate action, or lack thereof, because I was watching Glasgow and I was seriously alarmed at the absolute lack of progress and commitment that was being made, even though that action was being demanded. And it was actually action that was needed 15 years ago. So I said, all right, Jen, you can sit here in Mexico and have this great part-time consulting life, sitting in your garden, doing your metal sculpture, and that's all very well and good for you. But this is global, and this is urgent, and it's service. Time to get back in the game. So at 59 and a half, I put my consultancies on hold, and I thought, somebody out there is really going to value my 30 years of experience and passion and dedication, and I'll feel good about making a contribution to this absolutely vital issue of our day. So I started to apply for jobs, and I applied for 1 month. I got nothing. I applied for 2 months. I got nothing. After nearly 6 months, I got one interview, and I was so thrilled. And I quickly went from the HR filter straight up to the senior vice president interviews in less than a week. And I thought, oh, this is great. So I started thinking about all the logistics that were going to be required of me moving from Mexico into the United States, where I hadn't lived in about 40 years. And I realized in all my sort of planning and next stepping that they had ghosted me. And I didn't hear from them. And it took about 2 or 3 weeks before I could finally catch up again with the HR person. And she said, Jen, everyone really enjoyed meeting you, but you just didn't have the experience.
Oh my.
And I know, right? Well, I was flummoxed. I had double the experience that was posted. And a friend of mine pulled me aside. She goes, Jen, you're hitting ageism. Ageism? What the hell is ageism? Like others who have said, we've heard from today, we didn't feel that age thing, right? We were just doing what we were doing. And I was really, I just couldn't get my head around it. And so I thought, well, ageism, I had dealt with sexism my whole life. Right? One time I even had to be made an honorary male in Azerbaijan in order to do an end of project interview with a group of Meskhetian Turk elders.
Oh my
God. I wasn't ever afraid to be at important tables or speak up in important gatherings. That was never a problem. But ageism just stopped me cold because I thought, I just don't know how to navigate this. And I started falling into a depression. And I sought out a therapist, and I was asking her, well, is there like feminist gerontology? Is there the philosophy of aging? Is there? And she said, Jen, that's kind of not a really well-developed area of therapy yet, and particularly with that feminist aspect. Okay. Well, I'm not one to wallow. So I started reading widely, and I found Jean Shinoda Bolen, and of course, Ashton Applewhite and Brene Brown. And I thought, okay, there are women out there, I can follow them. And then I started unpacking my skills and my tools of decades of community mobilization and citizen engagement. And I thought, I can do this a little bit. And that was my aha moment. My aha moment of, I don't have the skills to manage ageism, to I do have the skills as a woman and as a lifelong activist. And so I started to weave together the elements that I was finding from these authors, from these thinkers, from my sister mentors, and combining it with my own material in order to create a workbook for myself. And I called it Where Wisdom Meets Wonder. And I worked through it for 6 months, and I felt infinitely better. But what I also discovered, and we've touched on this here today, I was shocked at how much ageism I had absorbed simply because of society's messaging. That bullshit story about aging is decrepitude and aging is fear, that's crap. But I had it in me. And so part of my own process was to start re-educating myself And I founded Wonder Crone because I thought, you know what, if I need to be schooled here, I bet what I'm learning through my lived experience is something that other women can also grow through, and we can do this together. And that aha moment of can't to can and will has led to some incredible things, like meeting Diana, or being on this stage and hearing all of your amazing stories, because I know that together we can, and we will expand. And for that, I absolutely thank you so much for this opportunity and for your wisdom and for your lived experience. Thank you.